All right, I think we can get started. So let's see. Well, thank you very much for joining our webinar today about how to comply with ISO 9001 in a digital world. And today we'll talk about ISO 9001. We'll talk about QDMS as a tool to comply ISO in a digital environment. And we'll also address your questions at the end of this webinar. As a start, if you keep your microphone mute during the webinar, that'd be great. So you can have a better quality in terms of sound. And if you have any questions during the webinar, please type your questions in the chat box that you'll see on the QDMS GoToMeeting control panel. There is a chat box there. Please feel free to type your questions there, and we can address your questions during the Q&A session. I am Kevin Kursat Devecioğlu. I am the Managing Director of Bimser International. To start with our brief company presentation, and then I will turn it to our panelists about ISO and about QDMS, and we'll definitely take it from there. So we are Bimser International. We are an enterprise software development company since 1998. As a company, we believe in simplicity. All of our products are designed to simplify processes of companies. And our vision is to be the leader in our marketplace, which is enterprise software marketplace. That's our vision. And simplicity is the essence of all of our products. We are a group of companies. We have our software development center in Istanbul metro area. We have another company in Europe called Bimser Europe for our European operations, and Bimser International Europe. As a group, we are about 150 people. Most of us are computer engineers and software engineers. Bimser is a certified SAP vendor, Microsoft Gold partner, and Acumatica Cloud ERP system software vendor. We are a very focused company in terms of our product line. We have 4 products available. IBA is our workflow document management platform. BIM is our asset and maintenance management software. QDMS, quality risk and compliance management software. And we have Ensemble as a business process management tool. When we look at our products, Ensemble is more of a managerial tool with KPI management and management capabilities. IBA with the workflow management, BIM with the asset management, and QDMS with the quality risk and compliance management. It is more of a they are to automate processes of companies. All of our products, they can work standalone, they can be integrated to each other, and they can be integrated to any ERP, any CRM platform in the marketplace. Also, there is mobile app available for all of our products. As we have up-to-date technology, all of our products can work on cloud and on-premise servers. Also, I'd like to mention about what we have been doing so far as for the projects that we have delivered. These figures show how many projects we have delivered at the end of last year. I need to update these figures, of course, soon. When we look at these, you can tell easily that we have been implementing our products for a long time, and we have a lot of experience. As for IBA, we have implemented more than 450 times. As for BIM, our maintenance management software, we have implemented more than 300 times. As for QDMS, we have implemented more than 150 times, and Ensemble more than 100 times, and still counting. Also, let's look at some of our references available that we have. These are enterprise level references and very, very well-known companies nationally and internationally. 3M is one of our customers. They are using IBA as in 17 different countries. United Nations is one of our references, using our document management software in in Syria to refugees for refugee tracking. ArcLight movie theaters based in California, they use EBA in association with SAP to manage their business operations. We have AstraZeneca in pharma industry, Bridgestone, Societe Generale, Ford, and Renault Nissan Alliance, some of our references. In essence, that is who we are as Bimser International and what we do. Now what I like to do is that I like to turn it over to Alex. Alex is a certified ISO auditor by Amras Consulting Company, and he will address ISO fundamentals and why it is so important to comply with ISO in various industries. Alex, would you like to take it from here?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much. And good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Kevin, I appreciate the opportunity to make this presentation on the ISO 9001 quality management system and its benefits and advantages. My presentation is a very basic introduction to ISO 9000. So I apologize to anyone who's already familiar with this standard. However, for those who are not, this will provide a very brief top-level overview. Just a few words about my company, Amras Consulting. I provide consulting services to various businesses to assist them in both achieving and maintaining ISO certification. Prior to starting my consulting business, I was employed as a project manager in a very large aerospace company, which it was operating under the AS 9100 quality system. Okay, so let's start by going over the topics for today's presentation. First, I want to mention about the origins of ISO, then discuss the meaning of the quality management system called QMS, and address the benefits that ISO 9001 brings to your organization. I will briefly touch on the plan, do, check, act cycle, how to achieve and maintain ISO certification, and finally introduce the QDMS tool, which would benefit a company in regards to ISO certification. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, brief, what is the ISO 9001 standard? Brief history of this standard. In 1987, the International Organization for Standardization, and this is what ISO stands for, members from 91 nations adopted the ISO 9000 series of standards. In 1994, the series was updated to an ANSI ISO ASQ standard, and US companies were able to become certified to the standard. About 20 years ago, the ANSI ASQ National Accreditation Board, or ANAB, was formed to provide accreditation to certification bodies, or what they call registrars, who in turn have the authority to grant certification to the individual companies. So now ISO 9001 is recognized throughout the world. Many companies will not buy from you unless you are ISO 9001 certified. The ISO 9000 standards are based via that a well-designed quality assurance program provides confidence in the organization's product and the management team. It serves as a basis for other industry-specific standards, such as automotive, aerospace, medical devices, food safety, environmental, information security management, and occupational health and safety. Next slide, please. So what is QMS, Quality Management System? ISO 9001 requirements include everything necessary for managing an organization, and that includes all processes needed to manage resources and other top-level processes. The scope of the quality management system must include every part of the business, from sales and planning activities, all the way to delivery and post-delivery. The QMS has simply become a way to do business. It is interesting to note that some organizations refer to as a business management system. So the scope of the QMS documentation covers all aspects except financial data. I would like to briefly just define some of the terms used in the QMS. Process. Okay, process is a sequence of activities that use inputs to deliver an intended output. For example, the production process has several steps that must be conducted in the appropriate sequence. Inputs in this process, like a raw materials, product specification, and work instructions, while the outputs are the product, quality check report, etc. The procedure is a defined way to execute an activity or a process. Policies are directives that are established both internally by the organization and imposed by external regulatory agencies. Records consist of all of the organization's internal required for operation, excluding financials. These documents describe the rules within a company that prescribe how products or services are created and delivered to customers. A successful QMS needs to be designed around the specific requirements of the company, its products, and services. It is important to stress that ISO 9001 is not a rigid set of requirements, and that organizations have the flexibility to implement their quality management system. This freedom allows the ISO 1 standard to be used in a wide range of organizations and in large and small businesses. One important aspect of ISO 9001 is its process-oriented approach. So instead of looking at a company's departments and individual processes, ISO 9001 requires that companies look at the big picture. How do the processes interact? Can they be integrated with one another? What are the key aspects of delivering products and services? Okay, next slide. So why is ISO 9000 good for your organization? Well, there's quite a few reasons. What ISO 9000 to your business may really surprise you, because organizations of all sizes have found tremendous benefits with the standard, including big savings in both cost and efficiency. And here's how your company may benefit. So better customer satisfaction. The focus of ISO is raising the customer satisfaction by properly determining and achieving customer requirements. Moreover, with higher rates of customer satisfaction, you see higher rates of repeat business. Increase your revenue and profitability. Even though ISO 9001 does not directly manage or control revenue and profitability, more repeat business will improve the financial results of the organization. Improved public image. By showing that you have been professionally certified, you show your customers and the public at large that you utilize a system dedicated to improving customer satisfaction. They will know that you can meet customer requirements and deliver promised results. Access to new customers. In many cases, customers require their suppliers to be ISO certified. Having QMS certified against ISO 9000 will open many doors to your company and enable you to participate in public tenders. Better decision making. A successful quality management system on good decision making based on sound evidence. This allows a company to better use its resources to address problems, improve efficiency, and increase effectiveness. Create a continual improvement culture, and this is key to ISO, because the main goal of ISO improvement, your company can realize greater savings of resources like time and money. If your company culture is continual improvement, then your employees will naturally focus their talents on making their own processes better. Increased efficiency. QMS based on ISO 9000 uses a process approach that examines each process within your company as well as how those processes interact. In this way, it becomes easier to determine where you can make improvements and where you can combine and save resources. Better process integration. The organization needs to establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve its QMS, including the processes needed and their interactions, in accordance with the requirements of the standard. This is where the process approach comes into action. The organization must determine inputs and outputs of the processes, sequence and interaction of the processes, resources needed, responsibilities, and ensure the effectiveness of the process. An engaged workforce. There's no one better suited to discover solutions for improving a process than the employees who spend their days working within that process. When employees are encouraged to improve their processes rather than just managing them, they become more engaged in the success of the company as a whole. So next slide, please. Core of this standard and many other management system standards is the so-called Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle, PDCA cycle, which dictates an effective management system. This was developed by Edward Deming, who was instrumental in developing modern quality control. So the first cycle is planning, which includes defining objectives, policies, procedures, and processes, including measuring aim to show whether the processes are delivering the expected results. The next step is the do phase, which represents the realization of the planned arrangement, applying policies and procedures, performing processes, and producing records. After the do phase comes the check phase, which is the results of the do phase are analyzed to determine performance and effectiveness of the activities and actions that were taken during the do phase, which includes analyzing, monitoring, and measuring results, audits, and management review. As the final stage of the cycle, the act phase is where the organization needs to take action according to the results of the check phase in order to achieve continual improvement. The PDA cycle should be an ongoing cycle that drives the organization toward continual improvement. Next slide. So now, what are the milestones in achieving certification? Well, first, QMS must be established for the organization and implemented to demonstrate compliance with ISO 9001 requirements. The QMS must be operated for a sufficient period of time to demonstrate its effectiveness. Then identify, select, and hire the registrar who is most familiar with your type of business. Perform an internal audit of all of your processes for compliance with QMS. Internal personnel may perform the, but he or she cannot audit processes that they are personally involved in. Management must show active involvement in all of the processes and schedule regular review meetings to assess of the QMS. Corrective action is the focus for ISO 9001 that requires identification of root cause of problems, perform analysis to determine the necessary correction, and assure that the resolution is identified and verified. The actual certification of registrar's auditor consists of 2 stages. Stage 1 is a brief assessment of the readiness of the organization to proceed with a formal certification review. Several weeks later, in Stage 2, all of the organization's documents, records, processes, and business are verified for compliance with ISO 9001. Action items may be generated by the auditor that must be closed prior to completing the certification requirement. Okay, next slide. So now once you've achieved the ISO certification, what does it take to obtain it? Upon receipt of your certification, the organization must continue to implement the QMS, educate the staff, and get continuous support and oversight by management. Management participation is a key factor in maintaining ISO certification. There's no way of going back to the original way of managing your business that you had prior to certification. All of the applicable processes be maintained, keeping documents, records up to date, conduct regular management meetings to continue areas of improvement. To assure compliance to the QMS, an internal audit must be completed yearly at a minimum. Finally, the registrar must review adherence to the ISO 9000 process on a yearly basis. Okay, next slide, please. So now I want to use QDMS as a tool that really helps you maintain or achieve and maintain ISO certification. So before I conclude my presentation, I just would like to introduce the QDMS tool that has been developed by Bimser to facilitate the management of the company's data in support of ISO certification. When I first heard about this tool, I was very impressed. This is exactly what I was looking for in my consulting work. And QDMS complies with all quality management systems, and targeted quality can be achieved without the dependence on individuals. The data required for ISO certification is all maintained in a single database accessible by multiple users for easy auditing, and this tool is modular and scalable, so only the modules applicable for your business need to be purchased. Also, QDMS is highly flexible, operating either on cloud or on-premise server, and has an app for both iOS and Android. Since this tool has been in existence for many years, it received very positive references from major international organizations. Okay, final slide, please. So in conclusion, with QMS in place and operational, the organization is now focusing on achieving the quality goals. Management is provided with data on a continual basis and is able to progress or lack of progress towards the goals and take appropriate action. The organized, scheduled process of conducting management reviews ensures that this evaluation is taking place. It provides the mechanism of reviewing goals and performance against goals on a schedule basis and taking action based on the evaluation. So the results of certification against ISO 9001, it gives you well-defined procedures, improve the consistency of output, quality is constantly measured, procedures ensure corrective action is taken whenever defects occur, defect rates decrease, defects are caught earlier and are corrected at a lower cost. Standard procedures are easier for new employees to follow. Organizations increase market share, growing sales and revenues. And a well-designed and implemented quality management system based on ISO 9001 has been shown to provide organizations with the following benefits. You will have consistent, repeatable processes. You will have problems with failures in service or product quality. Your people will know what to do and how you want it done. You will have more business because you can sell to new markets, and having this endorsement will distinguish you in the marketplace. You will know more quickly if things are going wrong and where you stop spending money, wasting time on the same old problems. Many problems will disappear because you know how to prevent them, and if they do come up, you will know how to fix them faster. So bad management control and reporting means that you know how your business is doing. And that is all, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Alex. Much appreciated. Now we have the knowledge about ISO 9001, thanks to your presentation, and why it is so important, and how we can actually improve our processes and our companies by applying ISO standards. Thank you very much for your insights and sharing your information and your experience. Now I'd like to turn it to our pre-sales software engineer, ETR Gonzalez. As we have the fundamentals now, we have the ideas about the fundamentals of ISO 9001. Let's talk about QDMS, how we comply with ISO 9001 digitally with the help of QDMS. ETR, would you like to take it away?
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Alex, for your presentation too. So what I'm going to do is share with you a couple of slides about QDMS, and then I'll show you how the product works. And by the way, QDMS stands for Quality Document Management System. Okay? It's a product that can help you ensure you're following the regulatory requirements of a certain standard. And today we are talking more specifically about an ISO certification. And just like Alex was talking about during his presentation, with a product like QDMS, what we can do is make sure that we are able to prove that we are following the procedures that we state at the beginning of our operations. So let's see how QDMS can help you achieve all of these. For example, QDMS is a product that is modular. Also, Alex talked a bit about that. All the modules in the system, they can work together, they can work independently. And there is a significant advantage because companies only have to pay for what they need at the moment. Maybe we have clients who start using 2 modules and then in a few months, they add another 2, basically depending on their needs. QDMS is flexible and it's scalable. So it's flexible as in it helps companies comply with any standard, whether it is an ISO certification, ERC, SQF in the food industry, and scalable as in it grows with the company. We have clients who start with 100 users and then they have 1,000 users. And we are always able to provide that functionality and to scale as they grow. Also, QDMS is an extremely easy to use product. It is easy to deploy. So once a company defines its procedures and pre-configures the system with us, they can get started in as little as 1 week. Okay, so just keep that also in mind. It is very, very easy to deploy. And not only will we be able to track everything we do in terms of quality, but we're also able to create paperless corporate memory, which is going to be accessible anywhere. So we can log into QDMS from a computer, a tablet, or we can use the mobile application that we have available. And here on this other side, we can see the modules that are available in QDMS. These are not all the modules, but it's just a summary of the most frequently used ones. So as I mentioned, QDMS was built as a quality document management system with workflow capabilities, and that's the module on the top left corner. And the functionality has widened over time, giving way to all these modules that you see in this slide and more. And no matter the module that we're working with, every task, every activity, every process is going to be monitored in the system. And thanks to do that, we can create reports from the information stored in the system. We can access graphical reports too, and we can make sure that everything is organized and that we're keeping track of all the things that we do within the system. Then we also have, for example, the rest of the modules, right? So I'm going to just give a brief information about them, and then during the demo, I'll show you how they work. So for example, with the document management module, we can upload documents, we can review them, distribute them, approve them, and basically we can give restrictions to make sure not every single user has access to all the modules in the system. For example, the customer complaints module helps companies manage their customer complaints, and these complaints can be both internal and external, which means that it is possible to get feedback from employees, but also from customers or suppliers. CAPA, for example, stands for Corrective and Preventive Actions, and with these modules, companies can identify nonconformities and opportunities for improvement, and basically they can develop a plan to take care of them. We also have a module for audit management, and basically here companies can create audit plans and send one of the employees to perform an internal audit and make sure everything is okay. We also have an action management module to help companies keep track of tasks, meetings, projects, and basically we can assign actions to the users of the system and make sure that they complete them within a certain time frame. We also have a module for managing surveys. This is not something common, but that we find really, really useful, and that's why it's available in QDMS. We can create a survey within minutes, we can distribute it and collect feedback instantly. There is also a module to manage the training the employees have to complete. We can record information about the sessions, the instructors, the attendees. We can even issue a certificate once the training is over. We also have a module for calibration to allow companies to monitor their assets, like maybe a machine or a device that has an impact on quality, right? So we can create work orders periodically to make sure that they are working correctly. And finally, QDMS includes a few modules for risk management, whether it is to measure environmental risk, health and safety risk, or maybe IT or process risks. And as I mentioned before, we keep working on the product to add more functionality to it. So let me show you now how this works. I just logged into QDMS. Okay. So what you see is that we have a dashboard. Right when we start, there are groups of categories, right? Groups of things that we have to complete. So we have to read a few documents. We have to take care of CAPAs, to perform analysis. We have to take care of customer complaints, to fill out surveys. We have trainings to participate in, basically. And we can access all of these right here, from the first screen. And basically, all of these tasks are going to be color-coded, so we have to make sure that the first ones that we complete are the ones that appear on red. Okay. And basically, what you see right now is a regular end user accessing the system, and this person has access to the main menu, which is on top. Right, we have the most frequently used modules here, and I'm just going to give an overview of how each one of them work. Very briefly, so just maybe you can get an idea. So for example, the document management system, it's going to allow us to create a corporate memory, so we can have our folder structure here. We can start adding documents to our folders, and if I open one of these, right, you'll see that it has a viewer integrated. We don't even have to download the documents to read them. We can access them directly. There is a tab to just make sure that we enter the document information, like the title, the revision number. That gets updated automatically. We can take a look at, who owns this document, the department it belongs to, when it was created, when it was prepared, all of this information. Then there is another tab for revision information. So basically here we're going to see the list of documents that were created, and we can track all the versions that we have of this particular document. Then we also have a tab for permissions. So all of these users, or user groups that you see on the slide, they're going to have access to either read, print, revise, access previous revisions, or delete these document in particular. There is also a tab for distribution. So again, all of these users are going to be receiving a notification saying, there is a new document in the system, please review it. We can do something similar with the approvals. So here we can list all the users who need to approve the document before it becomes public in the system. We can add comments here. We can also add a control copy. So if we print a document, we can keep track of that. We can add references. We can upload attachments. We can request more revisions as we go if we deem necessary. If we see something wrong, we can request another revision. And then there is another product tab for the product, so we can link it to a product. There is a review list tab, and finally the history tab, where you can see chronologically all the steps that this document went through until it became public in the system. So that basically covers the overview for this first module. I can show you now, for example, the customer complaints and how we can manage those. I'm going to be opening one of the examples here in the system already. And you'll see that, again, we have a series of tabs that we have to go through whenever we create a new customer complaint. So basically, all of these tabs are going to become active as we go. And right now, you see that some of them are not active, right? So the first thing to do would be to select the customer that we're talking about. Okay, and then we can enter the description, some details about this complaint. Every company is going to have different categories that they work with, right? So this is customizable. We work with our clients to configure all of these categories. In this case, it could be like either like a product nonconformity, and we have some sections there that we can select. And for example, we can add a few people here so that they receive a notification. We can also enter the date when we receive this complaint. We can also make sure to enter where did it come from. Was it something that we got through our website, through an email? Maybe someone called about a problem with the product. And you see that there is another section where we can enter the product code, the lot number, order number, if you have those, basically to help our employees track the problem back to its roots. Here you can see that we can select who's a team leader, who are going to be the team members working on this customer complaint, and by default they have 3 days to give an update to this complaint. Then you see that the fourth tab is for the attachments. In case we have any, we can upload them here. And the next tab would be to create a first progress report. So right there, between the fourth and the fifth tabs, that's where we stop whenever we create a new customer complaint. And basically, then when we assign a team, they are going to be able to access the rest of the tabs. So the first thing to do would be to enter, the details in the first progress report. Basically, read the complaint, you see what's wrong, and you can maybe make modifications in terms of the date where you are going to be able to finish that complaint. Then the next thing would be to perform the root reason analysis. We can upload a template to help companies within that, just take care of that root reason analysis. And once we find out what is wrong, then we could also take action upon that. So right now there is one root reason and there is one action associated with it. So right now you see that, for example, this action, Kevin is responsible for it. So we can see some of the things that would be entered here in terms of who is responsible for it, the dates, and the reason that this is associated with. And right now we would have to perform this action before we can move forward within this process. So you see that it is very, very simple. We have different tabs that we have to go through. For example, the follow-up tab is just to make sure that this problem doesn't happen again in the future. And those tabs are not active right now because we haven't completed the action. But the last one, the last tab shows a summary of this complaint. Basically, that's what you can see. And again, you see that the functionality is very similar. We have a few tabs that we go over, and you'll see that the CAPA management system is very, very similar to the complaints because those two are very close together. So if I open another example of a CAPA, you'll see that basically the looks are the same. There is just like a couple more tabs available here. So you see that the first tab is almost the same. We have, what's the CAPA source? So who was the person who identified this problem? Was this coming from a customer dissatisfaction, or was this coming from another area? And again, we have to enter the categories here, so it can be an suitability based on planning or logistics. It can be many, many different things. You see that the same thing, we have someone who's going to be informed about this. We have our solution team. This is the same. We have the attachments. We have the first progress report. Nothing changes here so far. We also perform the root reason analysis. We create the actions. And right now, this is where we are. There are no actions, so that's why we cannot move forward. But you see that there are a couple more tabs available here. There is one for error distribution. Maybe there is a CAPA that has some cost associated with it, or maybe we want to take care of this process through the global 8 disciplines. This is something common. Some of our clients do this. They have the team, they have the problem statement, and then they start identifying this way in these 8 steps all the actions that they take, whether they are preventive or permanent corrective actions. And again, the view tab shows these summary. Then I can show you now, for example, how the audit management works. In this case, we can create a plan. It can be maybe for the whole year, and we can start associating audits to this particular plan. So if I open one of the examples here in the system, you see that we can enter the dates, right? This was only for a week. We can enter there who's going to be informed about this, something very generic, and then we can add the audits to this audit plan. You see that there are a few audits included here. We have a production internal audit, for example. We know who's the lead auditor, the audit team, the units, the dates, the time that this is going to take, when this is going to take place, where this is going to take place. And basically, the system allows us to select predefined questions within the system so that we can add more. And this person who's going to be performing the audit, they know what they have to ask and the answer that they are expecting. Right? So we could have a complete list of questions, and for each audit, we could start filtering them and creating all the question lists, right? And we can get also the answers just like you see right here. So basically, this helps employees, right? Because sometimes you're not going to be auditing the department you work at. So we need the employees to know which kinds of questions they have to ask before we send them to a different department. The action management module works in a very similar way. We have a plan. It can be maybe a plan after a meeting, or it can be a plan because of a project. And for example, we can add tasks to a plan. So in this case, there are four tasks in here that we have to complete. We know who's responsible for them, who has to perform them, the department who's responsible for this, and again, like generic things like the start date, the end date, if they have been delayed or not, the status. You see the completion percentage. So 2 of them have already been completed, and we can just make sure that all of these tasks are accessible via the pending tasks, and also they can be accessed here. We keep track of everything. And we have the management review. I haven't talked about this before, but this is basically to show all the activities that have been delayed. We can access them here, or the ones that have been planned for the future. So if we don't want to take a look at them from the home screen and we just want to access everything all together and maybe filter them by date, we could also access them here, and it gives you a global perspective. And I can show you, for example, how we can prepare a survey. This really takes no time. I'm going to show you one of the examples that we have for an employee satisfaction survey. You see here that whenever we have a survey, there are going to be some questions associated to it. They can be either questions that are radio buttons so that we can always select one answer. They can be multiple answer. We can have drop-down menus. We can have free text to enter what we want. We can select today's date. And basically, every time that we have one of these surveys and we send it, I'm going to also show you in a moment how we can get the answers, right? So right now I have another browser here opened with a different user. This is the manager, right? And this person has access to the responses. So basically you see the completion, the participation rate. In this case, there was only one participant, so the participation percentage was 100%. And you can take a look at the distribution of the answers. So maybe all of the users answered yes to this question, or maybe the answer was this, or we can just see graphically here the different responses. And obviously, all of these surveys that we submit, they can be anonymous or not. If in this case this was not an anonymous survey, and the manager could access directly, just like a quiz, the answers that the person gave. Okay, so these were the results that have been submitted for this particular survey. And yeah, so that's how we can also manage surveys. It's something that is not common for a quality document management system, but it's something very, very useful. And just to finish the overview, I wanted to talk a little bit about the training planning, because each company who's trying to get an ISO certification or they want to maintain one, they're going to need a training plan. Okay, so we can either be assigned to participate in training, or we can actually request to be trained on some of the aspects that maybe we're not as familiar with. And yeah, those are some of the things that we can do within the system. Okay, all of those modules are the most frequently used ones, and that's the overview that I wanted to give you right now. So what I'm going to do is just go back to the presentation so that we can have our Q&A session. We're going to be just reading out loud all the questions that you submitted. Hopefully this was helpful for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Itier. During the webinar, we talk about ISO 9001 in terms of fundamentals. So share his insights, some of his experiences. And also with Itier's demonstration, we talk about how ISO 9001 standards can be actually managed in an electronic environment with the help of QDMS. So if you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat box. I have also received some questions in the chat box, and will be also definitely address those questions with you. One of the questions that I have, Alex, that question is for you, Alex.
Sure. Yes.
Is ISO 9001 is okay to comply with in any industry, or has to be used in certain industries?
Well, there are different guidelines for different. As I mentioned before, there's specific guidelines for the medical industry, food industry, environmental, and so on and so on. Automobile has its own guidelines, but again, obviously, because of the nature of the industry, there's some specifics that have to be different to conform with the requirements of the particular deliver. In principle, ISO covers just about any business, and including, size of the company. Could be a very large organization or a very small organization. I have seen a one-person business actually be ISO certified. But again, it is the overall guidelines. It's the requirements for processes, institutional processes, and a continual improvement is the key, is the heart of ISO. as well as a management involvement. During any audit by the registrar, management is also interviewed, and the auditor wants to make sure that the management is heavily involved in the actual implementation of the ISO processes.
Thank you, Alex. Here I have a question. I think that's for you. Does QDMS have any mobile app you can use in your organization?
Yeah, all of our products have mobile applications. They're available for Android and iOS. So, for example, whenever we have to approve maybe a document, or maybe we can just review a task or something that we have to do, we can open our mobile app, take a look at it right there, and then if we have to register what we do, then we can obviously log in through the web browser. But it really helps. It really helps companies whenever you just want to receive notifications or manage your tasks.
Thank you, Itir. I have another question. I was also trying to address in the chat box by myself, but I'd like to also share it with other audience as well. Can the system integrate with Active Directory? So the answer is yes, right? Itir, can you?
Yeah. So, for example, the users who have a Windows computer, they can just log in once. They don't have to log into QDMS afterwards. And also, someone was asking a follow-up question to what I answered about the mobile application. So basically, it can also work in offline mode. Our mobile app can work offline, and then when it has Wi-Fi connection again, then the data will be synchronized. Okay, but it can definitely work offline too.
Great. Thank you, Itir. You're answering back to back. Much appreciated. So we have another question in the chat box that I'd like to also address with you. Can the system integrate with any other ERP? That is the question.
Should I answer? Yeah. So, for example,
yes,
QDMS, we were talking before that we are an Acumatica independent software vendor, right? So Acumatica is a cloud ERP, and for example, we can integrate with that. And since we use web service APIs to connect to other systems, so really for all of our products, they can integrate with others, and they can also work within our product suite. So, for example, QDMS works very well in relation with Ensemble, or sometimes companies also use Beam and QDMS at the same time, and it really helps them in their operations.
I have another question that is regarding to the cost of the product. What is the base cost of QDMS? So the QDMS is a modular product. What it means is that you don't have to buy entire suite, entire software if you don't need it. You just buy the modules that you need to you would like to use in your organization. Is based on the modules that you choose to have in your organization. It makes the buying process simpler, effectively easier, and also the investment is going to be much more affordable for you, and ROI will be much more easier to calculate based on the module is one of the competitive advantages of QDMS. So we can talk further besides what modules you like to
Kevin, let me just kind of go over that answer again, because we couldn't hear you. I think we missed most of your answers. So basically what he was addressing is that both QDMS, the rest of our products are modular. So the cost of the platform is going to be based on the number of modules that the users get. For example, sometimes we can offer these products cloud-based. It can also run on-premise. So depending on the business module model that the customer wants to work with, the pricing is going to change. But please, if you want to learn more about pricing, you can just enter your email information. We can get back to you on that, and we can talk about that in detail.
Thank you, Ityar.
Yeah, we can hear you now. It's better.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm back. Thank you for the clarifying. Thank you for the
clarification.
Much appreciated. So, thank you for joining our webinar. Thank you for your interest. On the screen, you can see our contact information. So to continue this conversation, please feel free to give us a call or send us an email. We'll be happy to
address all
your questions and happy to help you. And don't forget to sign up for our coming webinars. Next week we'll be on maintenance management and how to reduce maintenance costs. So that is a webinar coming up next week. And also next week we have lunch and learn about digital transformation in Belleville, Long Island, New York. Those of you in
New York
area, please feel free to register for our lunch and learn about digital transformation. It's an informative session. It's all about learning about digital transformation,
stages
about digital transformation, and how you are approaching to the digital transformation in your organization. Register. We'll be keeping you posted. Thank you again for joining our webinar, and looking forward to meeting you again in coming webinars of ours. Thank you and have a nice day.